Hey, what's up, everyone? It's the Lemesis, your nemesis, but you can call me Lem. Welcome to Just Another Cheesehead podcast. I'm your host, and today we're just looking at the stats. I'm excited to look at the stats today because I want to be fair. I want to be concise. Remember, this is Just Another Cheesehead podcast, which means I'm not an expert. I'm not a professional. I'm just another cheesehead. Proud owner of the Green Bay Packers. Go Pack Go. I know that some of my viewpoints may be controversial, cause issues among the fan base, but, it is what it is. I'm willing to step out. I'm willing to be the one hated on. Or I'm willing to be the one that says that no one else wants to say. So today we're going to strictly focus on the stats, and I thought it was quite interesting. A little bit of this will be new to me. I've kind of skimmed through this, and I felt like it would be great to compare the first year of Aaron Rodgers to the first year of Jordan Love to the first year of Brett Favre to the first year of Bart Starr. And then I just randomly picked a rookie quarterback on the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud, to compare him to as well. Some people might think that's unfair. To be honest with you, I thought it was completely fair because his name came to mind. I wasn't even looking at his numbers, so I have no idea realistically how good or bad he is. Now, I did skim over the numbers. He looks pretty good. So some people might say that's not fair, but I think it is. Jordan Love's been sitting on the bench for 3 years. C.J. Stroud just got drafted in 2023. So, let's begin. Let's get in here. So, as you can see, it says here, I'm getting this from statmuse.com, so all the cred go to these guys. Again, I'm just using their platform. I'm not even signed in. This is really great. You don't even have to have an account or anything like that. So I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I'm just using their platform. So in 2008, Aaron Rodgers had a passer rating of 93.8 with 4,038 yards, 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and 16 games in 2008. Pretty good. Now, I want you guys to remember the year Aaron Rodgers took over, we actually just went to the playoffs, and we got beat by the Giants. And the last touch, it's funny because it's kind of similar to what happened with Aaron Rodgers, but we weren't in the playoffs. But the last pass that Brett Favre threw as a Packer was an interception. And if you want to fact check me, you can. I'm like 99.9% positive that's the case because I watched the game. And I love me some Brett Favre. I really did. I love that guy, despite all the shenanigans he's associated with after leaving the Packers. And it was fitting for someone like Brett Favre to finish his career in Green Bay with there was two ways it could have ended. It could have been a pick, which it was, or it could have been a comeback, which would have been incredible, right? Like if he comes back down 14, that would have been awesome. So Aaron Rodgers, he did the same thing, right? Trying to get into the playoffs. The last throw he made, I'm pretty sure was an interception as well. But we all know Aaron Rodgers isn't really known for throwing picks. So, and then what's crazy about that is we have, if we were to count all the picks that were tipped, his interception to touchdown ratio would be outrageous. No one could touch it. I don't think anyone could touch it now, but my goodness. So, he had 16 games. He had 341 completions, 536 attempts, a 63.6% completion. We already went over the yards. He averaged 7.5 yards a throw and 252.4 yards a game. And then he had a 2.4% interception ratio, I'm pretty sure. I think he was sacked 34 times, which is quite a lot. I want to say that I heard a stat that Aaron Rodgers, ever since he's been in the league, is the most sacked quarterback. That's insane. Now, that might be the case because he's just one of the oldest, but still, like, and the oldest. But, man, that's outrageous. But I know how stats can be swayed just because, guys aren't playing anymore. So let's go and look at Aaron Rodgers' performance, because I know some people, I was reading a comment and watching a video going over Jordan Love, his performances, how good, how bad, et cetera, et cetera. And I noticed somebody's made the comparison that Jordan Love had a similar start to Aaron Rodgers and that year 2 was going to be amazing. And I went to Green Bay in 2008, and I actually went to the game. I got to see Peyton Manning play and Aaron Rodgers play in person. I've been to several Green Bay Packer games in person in Green Bay, and a few of them in Green Bay, and one on the road against Atlanta in 2010 where we lost. That was a rough one. I remember I got, I didn't have a lot of money then. I mean, I don't have a ton of money now, but I have much more than I had then. And I remember we had nosebleed seats. I went with me and my buddies. And I remember when we lost that game, there's a guy sitting in front of me. He was a Packers fan. He was there with his wife and kids. And it hurt him so much. Like, I remember losing and feeling the pain, but it hurt him so much, he was crying. And I remember being like, bro, there's always next week. But I remember, like, I know all of you can relate. When we lose, it's hard to go through the rest of the week. It just is. This year is different for me. Because when we lose, I expect us to lose. So I've already kind of made it up in my mind. Like I've said this before, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, they gave us hope. So every time we lost, it was like, oh my God, if this other guy would have just caught the ball, or if he would have picked it off, or we would have forced the fumble, you kind of blamed other parts of the team, or you'd blame Favre for throwing a pick, or Aaron Rodgers for missing a guy wide open because he was so conservative, whatever it was, right? But with Jordan Love behind the helm, it's like, I don't have any expectations at all. Our defense was extremely mediocre last year, and Aaron Rodgers had a broken thumb, and he could only get him a couple games. I don't think we won 10 games last year, so it's like, why am I going to think Jordan Love's going to do anything out there? Because he won't. It's his rookie year. Even if he is the next coming of Aaron Rodgers or the next coming of Tom Brady, he's not going to do it in his first year. So I set the right expectations, and I think you should too. Because if you don't, you're going to go from week to week being extremely disappointed, and it's going to break your heart. It just is. But as you can see, this is his overall career stats, but we're going back to 2008. This is great. Let's look at it. I'm excited. Let's go. So we're going to go into each individual game, and then we'll just go back and forth because I do think it's important. I don't believe that comment that I brought up earlier that the comparisons are the same. So let's just check it out. So first game, Aaron Rodgers, 18 completions, 22 attempts, 178 yards, 8.1 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, rating of 115 against the Minnesota Vikings. Pretty good game. Not as great as Jordan Love's. Let's move to the next game. So we got at Detroit on September 14th. We win that 48-25. Go to the player stats. Aaron Rodgers, 24 for 38, 328 yards. That's a Bears-like game, right? I don't believe Jordan Love threw 328 yards, and we might as well get Jordan Love up in here because he's only got 5 games. So looking at his in comparison would be pretty easy. We don't have to wait till we get there. So let's pull it up. First game, right? This is the Bear-like game, right? This is 15 completions, 27 attempts, 245 yards, 9.1 yards per pass, 3 touchdowns, 123.2 rating. Aaron Rodgers, 117 rating, 8.63. I mean, that's pretty comparable, right? The Detroit Lions have always been trash. So They were 0-2 then, so that's a very comparable game. So then let's go back. So then now we have Jordan Love in a loss against the Atlanta Falcons. He had 3 touchdowns again, 113 rating, 14 of 25, 151 yards. Let's go back to Aaron Rodgers. So we saw the Minnesota one. Let's just kind of compare it again. Now, again, bear with me. This is just going to be a boring podcast. I'm not going to really get too deep into things. I just want to go back and forth with the numbers. You can see it. I can see it. It's just going to be interesting for us to check so we can make an analysis. So look at this. This is a comparable game, right? 115 rating, 8.1. He had more touchdowns this game, 113, 14 of 25, 18 of 22, 151. We got 178 yards. So I still think Jordan Love had the better game if you look at it. But in the end, this ended with a W. So in the end, you got to give the nod to Aaron Rodgers. But overall, if you're just looking at individual performance, you would give that head nod to Jordan Love. Now let's go to the Saints and the Packers just a few weeks ago. So Jordan Love, 22 of 44, 259. This is when he came out thriving in the second half. Still don't think we should have won this game. I do think Derek Carr stays healthy. This game is over. We weren't coming back. So let's go back to Aaron Rodgers' first year, and let's look at Dallas. We lose 16 to 27. I think that's Mr. Tony Romo. I don't know who was the quarterback then. I'm pretty sure it had to be Romo. Oh, yeah, it was Romo. There we go. 22 of 39, 290 yards. That's pretty good, but he was sacked 5 times, as you can see there. 7.4 yards. Hey, what's up, Billy? How you doing, bro? I see you, man. So he had an 80.1 rating. It's pretty decent. Jordan Love, 66.4, 22 completions, 44 attempts. Not so good. It did end in a W, though, when it's all said and done. And then in this one as well, we ended with an L. Because of the W, you give it to Jordan Love. But overall performance, you would definitely have to be looking at Aaron Rodgers as even performing well. That's what's up, Billy. How you doing? So let's move to the next. Now we got Aaron Rodgers at Tampa Bay. We lose 21 to 30. Let's pull his stats up. 14 completions, 27 attempts, 165 yards. Now you get that trash burger of a game, right? He throws 3 picks, 2 touchdowns, 3 sacks. Okay? Now, he at least made an attempt to get on the board a little bit. Let's look at what Jordan Love does right after the Saints. We go to Detroit. Player stats. All right, so this is just Jared Goff. There we go. Ooh. So 23 completions, 36 attempts, 6.8 yards a pass, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 5 times, though. That's quite a bit. A 69.9 QB rating. I would say it's not terrible. You could tell he made an attempt. And then just looking at the stat line, being sacked 5 times, he was under a lot of pressure. So, to only throw 2 picks in that game, and then knowing the picks in that game some of the picks in that game were tipped. I think both picks were tipped in this game. Then you can kind of give him that pass when you look at that. So then you're comparing the Tampa Bay game, 3 interceptions. But I really think the game we should be looking at is the game that just happened recently, when you're really comparing the two. And then we can stop the comparisons because we're, 5 games in, and Jordan Love doesn't have that many games yet. But let's look at how he performed here. So we got 3 interceptions, 2 sacks, a 32.2 QB rating, no touchdowns to show for. And now we're looking at Aaron Rodgers, another game where he threw 3 interceptions, but you saw a valiant effort of at least putting up 2 touchdowns. So I'll say this. It looks like when Aaron Rodgers is playing bad, there's still signs of greatness. There's still signs of good, so to speak. When he's throwing picks, he's at least throwing touchdowns. If he's losing games, he's not throwing a ton of interceptions, except for this one particular game. Remember his overall stats for 2008? He had 28 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. The season isn't over for Jordan Love. So everything that we talk about right now is based off the fact that the season isn't over yet. But I thought it was really cool to look at the comparison for the first 5 games to Aaron Rodgers, to Jordan Love. And I think we can do this week by week as the games come out, keep doing the comparisons. Kind of useless to keep going because we don't know what Jordan Love's going to do in week 7, 8, 9, and 10. But we do know what Brett Favre did. So now that we got the first 5 games of what Jordan Love did, and we kind of briefly went over that, let's look at what Favre did. Then we're going to look at Bart Starr, and then we're going to check out C.J. Stroud. And again, this is just to give us a well-rounded opinion on, because none of us know if this guy is really going to be the next coming of anything. He could just be a backup. But that's what makes the whole game of football so much fun when we're watching it, that like we have these opinions. We could be completely wrong. We could look like idiots, and we could say a lot of things that don't really make any sense. But if we take the time to look at the numbers and study things, and I don't think stats are the end-all, be-all, because I can't stand that, honestly. Sometimes it gets really frustrating when you're talking to someone and they just throw a lot of stats out because the numbers can lie, right? When you watch the game, there's tons of games where guys are playing and he averaged 300 yards a game, but then it's like, well, he threw, a ton of yards in the fourth quarter when the game was out of reach, and they lost like 10 games. So like, yeah, he was stat padding the entire season. For the 10 games he lost, he kept stat padding in the fourth quarter, so it looked like he was really great, but none of those yards were gained during the pivotal times where they could have been picking up those yards. So it's little things like that in any sport where you have to remember that the stats don't always tell the picture. So we got to remember that. I mean, I watched all of Aaron Rodgers' games ever since he was drafted. Even this minor performances the few years before that. I can't recall all of it now, right? Because memory is not the most reliable thing. But I do recall when I watched Aaron Rodgers play, even though we lost, we were 6-10 in 2008, there were flashes of greatness. This kid, or now he's a grown-ass man, this kid at the time, he was amazing. He showed, there would be times where you'd be so upset, and I remember being pissed that like we get rid of a Hall of Famer for this rookie kid, and he still wanted to play. So I was like, why are we getting rid of Brett Favre? He wants to play. Who cares if he's a diva and he wants to think about retiring? Let him think. He got us to 2 Super Bowls. He won us 1. The other one John Elway took from him. I mean, hey, you got to give it up. You got John Elway there on the other side of the field. That's fine. But still, like, he brought us to 2. Let the guy take the time to decide. He's been through a lot. He lost his father. He was dealing with issues with his wife. I'm pretty sure his wife had cancer at one point. There was a lot of things going on in the NFL and in his personal life. To me, when you got a great QB Hall of Famer like that, especially knowing that before Brett Favre showed up, they were thinking about shipping the Green Bay Packers out of Green Bay, meaning that team wasn't good enough to even keep that team in Green Bay. They were thinking about moving him out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. So he came and single-handedly saved the team. But then Aaron Rodgers kept showing those flashes, and I was like, wait, I don't really like Aaron, but did you see that pass? Like, that was incredible. That was absolutely amazing. And, I mean, you can go back and look at the highlights. The kid was outstanding, and he showed a lot of signs. Right now, week 5, I'm not seeing a lot from Jordan Love. I will give him this. I saw a couple passes in the end zone when we were in the red zone area where he threw a couple touchdowns that looked Aaron Rodgers-esque, right? He had that beautiful arc on the ball, hitting a corner of the end zone, the receiver, the only person who could actually catch it. I've seen him do that once. Other than that, I see arid throws. I see him all over the field. I'm not seeing consistent passes. I mean, Rodgers was throwing bombs, and they were dropping in dudes' baskets. I mean, I could have just put my pocket out there and he would throw that junk right in my pocket. Like, he was so good. But let's look at what Brett Favre did. Now, Brett Favre was reckless, right? Everybody remembers Brett Favre. If you watched in the 90s, he was Mr. Reckless. 3-time MVP, 1 championship. He threw for over 71,000 yards, 62% completion. It's a different era of football. Even though it was Brett Favre right after Rodgers, it's very different. The rules were different. Somehow this man, he was the Iron Man. He lasted over 200-plus games without missing a game, and he played through so many injuries, it was outrageous, right? Like, there used to be like a running joke that, like, Brett Favre can throw a ball underwater during a hurricane. Like, people used to just joke about how resilient Brett Favre was, and he just was. He was absolutely incredible. Old country boy from the South. I mean, even if he was racist, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I love Brett Favre. I don't care about what you do off the field. I care what you do on the field, right? That's why I love watching sports. But first year he ever played with us is 92. Remember, he was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, and then he was traded to the Green Bay Packers. So he completed 15 games in 1992, so I figured we should just look at that, right? So in 1992, he had an 85.3 rating. He had 302 completions, 471 attempts, and if you're not seeing it, it's right here on the screen, right here at the top. His completion percentage was 64.1, and he threw for 3,227 yards, averaged 6.7 yards a play or a pass. He had 215 yards a game. Now, he had 18 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That sounds Favre-like. Sacked 34 times, lost 14 fumbles, or had he fumbled 12 times, sorry. I don't know where I got that 14 from. But let's dive deep. But I do want to go back to Aaron real quick. So, 93.8 rating, Brett Favre, 85.3. And then overall right now, Jordan Love, not looking too bad, but a 77.3 rating so far, right? He's got, where's his touchdowns? He's got 8 touchdowns, and he's got 6 interceptions. So, I mean, at the moment, he's looking Favre-like, right, with his 18 and 13. But, I mean, he did fumble the ball 12 times. That's rough. I mean, Jordan Love's not really fumbling the ball. He's only got 2 so far on the season. So he's not completely out of contention. Like, I wouldn't be upset if we had another Favre, right? But it is hard to look at how well, because I clearly think Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback. Like, it's head and shoulders above Brett Favre. But, I mean, Favre wasn't terrible. Favre was pretty darn good. So if we get another Brett Favre, I'm happy about that. Don't think that's the case with Jordan Love, but let's take a look. We're going to just look at the first 5 games. So we get the brakes beaten off of us against the Tampa Bay Bucks. For some reason, the Bucks just had our number, even when they were bad. I remember even when the Bucks would win like 4 games that season, we would be the one. We would be the one game they win that season of the 4 and lose. So it looks like we were losing that game. Brett Favre comes in. We had Mikowski. He was terrible too. Brett Favre had 8 completions, 14 attempts, 73 yards, and we had a 41.7. So, again, he came in as filler. The game was out of reach. We decided to give him a chance. So that's not truly the best comparison. You only got, the game wasn't even designed around you, right? It was designed around Mikowski. So let's go to the Bengals. All right. So then Brett Favre gets 22 completions, 39 attempts, 289 yards. Pretty darn good. He was sacked quite a bit, but he had a 97.1 rating, 2 touchdowns. That's a good show out. Now, all 3 of them, every last one of them, basically their first game, they all looked good, right? Aaron Rodgers, he didn't throw a ton of touchdowns, but he had a great passer rating, 115. Jordan Love, 123. Then we got Brett Favre, 97. They're all legitimate or close to legitimate first games. They all look good. So I don't think it's fair to go to Bart Starr, but I mean, I thought it would be fun just to look at it because, again, it's a whole new era. I don't expect the completion percentage. I don't even expect the attempts to be up there. I don't expect a lot of things. Like their passer rating, I mean, look at this. Like, Bart Starr just played in a different era, right? The game was different. The sport was different. So it's not really fair, right? But I still want to make the comparison after the first 5 games here. So then we got Cincinnati. Now let's go to Pittsburgh. Looks like it was in Green Bay. All right, so the Packers, Brett Favre, really another great game. 14 completions, 19 attempts. So we're running the ball a lot. We're not trying to throw the ball. We're putting him in a position to succeed. 2 touchdowns, sacked twice. He's getting 11 yards a throw, 210 yards. It's manageable. That's not bad, right? What we got for Jordan Love, 113 passer rating. Brett Favre, 144. It's pretty darn good. Looks like he has the higher passer rating of the 3 so far in the first 5 games, so that's a stellar game. Now let's go to the next game. Now we got at Atlanta, so he's coming back. I don't know if you can call this a revenge game because he was there for the first year. So the Falcons beat us 24-10, but let's look at what Brett Favre did. So that's pretty good. He was throwing the ball a lot this game, 33 of 43. That's pretty fantastic. He's only averaging 6.4 yards a throw. Then we got 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked twice. That's not bad. That's a pretty decent game. Again, even in a loss, Brett Favre looks good, right? And he's slinging the ball all over the place. I don't recall too much of watching the first year of Brett Favre. I'm not going to front. It was a long time ago, but I did watch most of his career. So, and also it was in 1992. So I was definitely an adolescent at the time. I'm not going to act like I wasn't. And then let's get to the 5th and final game. We have another loss, 17-6. It's at Cleveland. And again, another great performance, but it just fell on deaf ears. He had 20 completions, 33 attempts, 6.8 yards a throw, 223 yards. He was sacked twice, but 80.7 QB rating. Again, he took care of the ball, right? So Brett Favre looked really, really good in his first 5 games. And when you compare Brett Favre to Jordan Love to Aaron Rodgers, you're getting a QB rating of 115, 117, 80, 55, and then 109. Those are those first 5 games. If we go to Favre, we get a QB rating of, okay, I don't want to count the first game because he came in late. And Mikowski also played a little bit here. He probably got injured, if what I'm remembering. But I still think you can count this game. 97, 144, 80. Sorry, 90.8, 80.7, and then a 69 rating. So if you compare the 3, I don't think we're on the same track, right? You're also seeing, like, let's look at how he's performing. You have a terrible game, but he came in last minute. Great game, fantastic game, another great game, decent game, and then below average game, right? He's not playing well there. And then a great game right after that. So again, his story is yet to be written, but I'm not seeing that comparison between Jordan Love and Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers of, man, look how poorly they performed. No, for the most part, if you look at it, even in the losses, Aaron Rodgers only had 1 bad game in his first 5. Brett Favre, I mean, I don't think you count game 1. And the same thing with the Chicago Bears on October 25th. He had 1 bad game in his first 5 legitimate starts. Now you go to Jordan Love. He has 3 bad games in his first 5 starts. And they were opportunities for him to win those games, right? So, I mean, that Raiders game to me was very, very like concerning. Because the defense was good enough to keep them in the game, and there was a time for Jordan Love to show that, like, man, I can make that play, and he just didn't. So he had no signs of looking good at all in any way, shape, or form, and he didn't look accurate. So I don't know how you can say you can compare Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers in their first year so far, looking at the first 5 games. And then just for fun, before we get to CJ Stroud, I don't know. Let's see. How many games did he complete? He did 9, and then there's 12. So let's go to 57. Let's go to 1957 for Bart Starr. And it looks like, well, I guess this is just where it is. We can't really look to see who they played against. It would be interesting to see that, but I guess they don't really have that here. So this is his overall, this is for the entire year. This is just what's outrageous about this. So for the whole year, he had 117 completions and 215 attempts. I mean, QBs today will have that in like 2 games. I mean, that's crazy. And he, like, you could play 2 games in 2023 and get 215 attempts, or at least 100 attempts. And back then, for the entire season, he had 215 attempts, 117 completions, attempt per, I don't remember what that stat means, 1489 for the yards, 6.9 average. He had 124 yards a game. Oh, my goodness. They were running the ball a lot. 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, woo, and a 69.3. So, again, that's just for fun. But he was a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, won 5 championships, 4 Pro Bowl selections, so 4-time Pro Bowl selection. So that was just fun, right? I wish we could go in deeper and look at the individual games, but it looks like they don't even have the schedule, which I find kind of odd. How can you get the stats, but you can't get the the teams he played against? That's really weird. But it's all good. Let's go to CJ Stroud. Let's look at his first 5. Now, some people might think this is not fair. I think it's fair because Jordan Love sat on the bench. If you think about it, well, all right, let's reword it. It's not fair because Jordan Love has more experience. So technically, Jordan Love should look better than somebody like CJ Stroud. Right? I'm pretty sure CJ Stroud was the number 1 pick. Or definitely he was in the first round. But my point is, this kid shouldn't be that good. But on the contrary, he looked pretty good. He looked really, really good. And this is what I'm saying. Let's get rid of we already looked at all the other stats. So we got all the fun out of the way. Right? Now it's just coming down to what did Jordan Love do in his first 5 games? What did CJ Stroud do? And now CJ Stroud is 2-3. He's lost 3 games. He's won 2. He lost against Atlanta, but he looked better against Atlanta than. Well, no, I won't go that far because let's. I'm trying to share my opinion before looking at the information, but let's just look at it, okay? So, CJ Stroud against Baltimore, he didn't look terrible. He had a 78 rating. He had 242 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He was 28 for 44. He completed 63.6% of his passes. And they lost 9-25. That's his first game. Very first game, right? Unlike Jordan Love, the Bears suck, right? The Bears are just so bad. The best game he had is against the worst team in the NFL. Then game number 2. They still lose 20-31. But he looks decent. He throws 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 8.2 yards a pass. He gets he throws for 384 yards, completes 63.8% of his passes, 30 for 47, is a rating of 103.5. So he goes from 78 to boom, 103.5. Goes to Jacksonville, beats the Jacksonville Jaguars 37-17, 20 for 30, 66.7. His completion percentage goes up. He gets 280 yards. He's throwing 9.3 yards a pass. He has 2 touchdowns. Again, 0 interceptions. His first 3 games, 0 interceptions. A QB rating, a whopping 118.8. Come on, guys. Now let's go over his turnovers because we missed some. He did turn over the ball twice in Houston against the Indianapolis Colts. He fumbled twice. He also fumbled against Baltimore, so he's not without blemish. And out of the 2 fumbles against the Colts, he lost one, and then he lost the other one against the Baltimore Ravens. So that's to be fair. But fumbles are hard, right? I mean, when you get sacked, you get hit. You know, he was sacked 6 times against the Indianapolis Colts, and he was sacked 5 times against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, to be sacked 5 times, fumble once, lose the fumble as a rookie in your first game, that makes sense to me. To be sacked 6 times in your second game, lose 2 fumbles. Fumble twice, lose 1. Your second game, that's fine. But he's not throwing picks. And I think that's the key. I'm not going to knock the guy for fumbling the ball when he gets hit more than knocking the guy for making bad decisions, because that's a choice he's making. He's throwing that ball, and when he throws the ball, if it's going in the wrong hand of the defender, if it's going to the defender, that's a decision he made. So let's move on to Pittsburgh. He wins that game. It's 30-6. 16 for 30. His completion percentage drops. He throws for 306 yards. He's got 2 touchdowns. Again, 0 interceptions. Passer rating of 111.3. Lastly, the Atlanta Falcons, they lose 19-21. He's 20 for 35, 57.1% completion, 249 yards, 1 touchdown. But again, 0 interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over much, guys. And you see he's sacked 6 times, 5 times in the first 2 games, but then 0 times in the last 3 games, even though the game ended in a loss, and he has just 2 wins, he's holding on to the ball. So to me, without even looking at the film, without even looking at his performance, because I'm not going to sit here in front and act like I watched the Houston Texans, he looks pretty good. So I would be interested to see how C.J. Stroud does for the rest of the year. He just started. He just got drafted. What is Jordan Love doing? You've been sitting behind the bench. You've been watching the great Aaron Rodgers. What have you done? So I just want to add more legitimacy to my argument, to my point, that I don't think Jordan Love's the answer. I also don't think Brian Gutekunst is our GM for the future. I think he's terrible. I don't think Matt LaFleur is the answer behind head coach. I don't think Joe Barry's the answer behind our defense. And I do think we need a clean house, and we need to start from scratch. I think the defense and the special teams is playing now as if Aaron Rodgers is no longer on the team, so they can't just rely on old trusty Aaron Rodgers to save the day anymore. I think that's why we looked so good last week, and we look good because the Raiders suck. They're a 1-3 team, guys. You know, I mean, Jair to come out and say we pretty much got to keep the teams from scoring. I mean, bro, that's what you're supposed to do every week. What are you saying? You know, to me, it's a knock against Jair to even say something so stupid. It causes division in the team. But then number 2, your job is to stop points. Well, you're going to sit there and be like, hey, we just supposed to give up 21 points, but it look like we got to give up only 14 now. No, you're supposed to give up 0. You're supposed to get the ball right back to your offense. So this idea of it's like the NBA. It's so foolish to me. You hear basketball players talk about man, these guys are so talented. You just can't stop that. I just find that idea really foolish, and it makes no sense. It's very foolish, and it makes no sense. You're a all-star. You are a all-time talented player. If you could play all-time offense, you can play all-star offense. You can have all-star defense. Don't give me this garbage of like some guys are just so good they can't be stopped. No, they can be stopped. You just need to step your game up. Now, I'm not on the court stopping them. You not on the court stopping them. They on the court. And their attitude is, if you want to play defense, play defense. That's what it should be. But they're saying, I don't want to play defense because these guys are too talented. So all I'm saying is Jordan Love had an opportunity in his first 5 games. He didn't look that great. Out of his first 5 games, he's got 2 games that look great. And in my opinion, what you're seeing is a regression because there was no tape on Jordan Love. So he comes out, 123 passer rating. Against Atlanta, 113.5. But then the tape is out, and he got a 66.4, 69.9, and a 32.2. To me, it's the culmination of like, we figured you out, bruh, and you're not that good. So now we're going to have another bye week. So we had like a mini bye week. We played Thursday night. We don't come back for like more than 8 days. And we throw a stinker out. This is what you did. Like, think about that. That's Matt LaFleur. And you got a 32.2 passer rating after being gone for that long. And you think somehow we're going to have another bye week is going to get better? Now, I will say this. It is against the Denver Broncos. I don't have the same opinion that other people have on some of these teams. Because, you know, it's like everything is circumstantial in the NFL. You can't just assume just because a team's record is a certain record that that's just how they're going to play. You know, like, for instance, the Minnesota Vikings only won 1 game this season. But does anybody truly believe Minnesota's that bad? No. Minnesota is that bad this season because of the teams they faced. Let's look at what the Minnesota Vikings have done, right? Look who they played against, guys. If you play against these teams, there's a good chance you're going to lose. They played the Eagles. They were just in the Super Bowl last year. They played the Chargers and barely lost. And here's another thing. The Eagles, it was 34-28. The Vikings against the Chargers, 28-24. They played the Chiefs and lost by 7. And then they played the Panthers, and the Panthers are who we thought they are. So, to me, it's logical. So, you see, there's teams like the Vikings. There's teams like we play the Rams. We play the Chiefs. There's a lot of teams on our schedule. The next team we play is the Denver Broncos. That's still Sean Payton and Russell Wilson back there. They're not going to be trash every single week. They're going to be trash. I mean, some of the games that they've played against, I mean, they were in it. If Russell Wilson doesn't fumble the ball, right? Let's try to pull up the Broncos. If Russell Wilson doesn't fumble the ball, they might beat the Jets. So, you know, the Broncos come back from the Bears. The Bears are trash. Everybody beats up on the Bears. They almost beat the Commanders, right? If you look how close these games are, besides, of course, the Dolphins. I don't know what is going on. Most inconsistent thing I've ever seen. But, like, let's just ignore the Dolphins game, right? They played the Commanders, barely lose to them, 35-33. They play the Jets. Russell Wilson doesn't fumble the ball. They potentially win that game. And then they have the Bears. So then literally they could be 3-4 right now. 3-1. So when you come up and when you go, oh, well, they're 1-4 and, you know, or 1-3 or 1 whatever. And then you go, well, we should win that game. It's like, no, dude, who did they play against? You know, like if Tyreek Hill, if they beat the Broncos 70-20, what do you think they would do to Green Bay? I'm just saying. I don't think that we're stopping. I don't think somehow, I think they go for the record and they play against us. We were trash. So that's all I want to say. Again, you know, take this with a grain of salt. I am just another cheesehead. I am not a professional. So again, thank you for listening to Just Another Cheesehead podcast. This one went on a little bit longer, but I wanted to go into the details and look at the numbers. You know, people make these claims and they make these statements about, you know, the comparison to Rodgers and Favre and Love. It's similar. And clearly we see that's not true. We just went over the numbers. None of that's true. Jordan Love is better than Bart Starr. Probably. But we didn't get to see the game-by-game breakdown. So it's not saying much. Again, for a different era and a different time. But, hey, if you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching me on Twitch, hit me up with a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm going to shout out to my man Billy for listening in. I appreciate you. He was listening to me live. And, hey, as always, like I like to say, if you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, you should get to know him. You should look up the salvation prayer and ask him to come into your life. It'll be the best decision you ever make in your life. I'm the Lemesis, your nemesis. You can call me Lem. Thanks for listening in to the Just Another Cheesehead podcast. Stay tuned. We got more to come. Peace, love, and hap. Hope you guys have a great day. Go Pack Go.